Hello, Alistair. How you doing?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
Well, it feels good morning and evening all in one, being up at 4:30 this morning with this summit. So, no, we're excited to have you here, and thank you so much for joining us. And before I start with you, Alistair, talking about your career, I just want to let people know that if you have a question, hint, hint, please do, because this guy knows his stuff with regards to having a champion minded. He's got this brilliant book. I may talk about, Alistair, how we got connected in a very authentic way due to your book. But honestly, if you want to improve your mindset at home, be more proactive, listen, sounding clear. Alistair, I'm going to give you the mic, my friend. Could you explain to listeners what you do and what you particularly specialize in, particularly in the sports sector?
Yeah, Ed, to be honest, I'm still trying to figure it out after 27 years. No, thanks so much, first of all, for having me. And I've been obviously watching some of it this morning. And first of all, before we start, I'd just like to acknowledge you. I'd like to acknowledge Amy, the whole team for putting on this. I mean, it's just incredible what you guys have achieved here. To be honest with you, I would not be attempting that. I'd far rather run a 24-hour marathon than do what you guys are doing right now. So I would choose that hands down. So massive acknowledgement, and thanks so much for putting this stuff out there, especially during such a time. So many people need to hear these messages right now. So I wanted to get that out there. First of all, thank you.
Thank you.
Second of all, I'm not joking when after 27 years, I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm a lifelong learner. So for me, every day is a new experience, a new journey. I started in the physical training industry, the performance industry, and that is now developed into more culture, leadership, self-development, as you can tell by the books I'm writing now, and of course, mindset. So I've had an amazing journey. They always talk about, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Where do you want to be in 10 years' time? To be honest with you, I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow. But I know for one thing, I'm going to maximize today all I can. I'm going to do what I can today. I set goals for myself each day when I get up. And, I have this expression, win the day. And a very good friend of mine sent me actually a gift last week, which was amazing. It was a plaque with my logo on it, and it said win the day. So I see that every single day. And that's how I try to live, Ed.
Well, absolutely. And the one thing I'm going to share now before we get in depth is how we got connected. And I'm not going to lie, it was this book a year ago. We talked about, Amy and I, earlier about, like, we had a question of what podcast was, when I say challenging, I call more exciting. When I reached out to you, and actually he's a speaker as well, Dia, I got him this for Christmas, and I sent him a copy from the UK to Egypt. You retweeted it. I went, right, I'm going to message you, thank me for the gift, for me giving it to him. And then we got on and we did a podcast, if we remember, the 1st of January 2018. And I read this book every morning. The chapters are brilliant. I know you just launched a new book called Winning Attitude and Mindset. We will talk about that. But literally, your book has changed my perspective of my mindset. Like you said, you would rather do a marathon than do the summit. I probably would have agreed with you like 2.5 weeks ago. But it's this book that has made things possible. And that's why I want to thank you, because we were talking about mentors earlier. That's been a theme. We've been talking about values. That's been a theme of this whole summit. But actually, I think one theme I'm going to talk about very shortly is with regards to gratitude and joy. I think this is just as important. Like, as much as Alistair, you do so much on the elite end, I think we're at a period where sport isn't in our faces. It's a time to actually take a step back of looking at things from a different perspective. So out of interest, what does spirit of sport mean to you with regards to sport, development and peace relating to this current time we're living in now?
Yeah, sport has so many mediums that we can learn from. I mean, that's another reason why I wrote Champion Minded, is that there's so many lessons from sports that help us in life as well. In fact, I see life as a sport. There's going to be the highs, there's going to be the lows, there's going to be the triumphs, the tragedies, there's going to be the victories, the defeats, and it's how we bounce back. And, just like in sports, and one of the main reasons why I wrote the book was because I wasn't the most talented athlete when I was younger. I was terrible in academics. And in fact, a very, very funny story. The two things I use the most today are obviously English, the English language, because I write books now, and I speak, and biology. And those were the two areas I went into life, and I failed miserably. In fact, here's a story I haven't told many, but I was actually kicked out of my final year's English class because I was looking out the window watching a PT class, physical education, and they were playing soccer. And I was sitting looking out the window, and I remember the teacher's name, Miss Miller. She said to me, "McCaw, would you rather be outside?" And I thought about it. I said, "To be honest with you, ma'am, I would." So she said, "Take your bags, don't come back." And I mean, I went to go join the class, and I had a very good relationship with the phys ed teacher at the time. Mr. Reinecker, I think his name was, and I joined the class, and I think I was participating in about 7 hours of physical education per week. So I improved myself. But getting back to your question, yes, sports is a great metaphor for life, so to say. I always say that greatness is about life. It's about living every day to your maximum. It's about learning from all the experiences. It's about feeling the pain from defeat and feeling the joy from victory. There's so many lessons that sport can give us. I mean, the opportunities it's given me in life, Ed, like I said, I was terrible at school. My academics, I never went to college. I only had a high school, but the lessons is that sport has given me so many open doors. It's given me so many opportunities. I've been able to meet so many incredible people. I'm humbly saying here, I look around my office and I've met amazing people. Roger Federer. I've been able to spend time with Rory McIlroy, Serena Williams, all these Ronaldo, all these incredible people, just because of sport. You know, back in the day, and I'm getting a little bit older now, but I left school in 1992. And back then, the sports industry was not like it was here. In fact, it was more of a hobby. It was more of a
amateur.
Exactly. And when I expressed what I wanted to do in my career, and I said I wanted to go into something sports, I remember a teacher type of laughing at me as if to say, "What are you going to do in sports?" And it's incredible how the industry has developed. It's incredible how the industry has given us so many opportunities. And I want to put this out right now. If it doesn't matter, where you're from, what you do, it doesn't matter what your grades were. All that matters is your attitude and where you are going today. That is all that matters. Don't look at your past and be a victim. Look today and be a victor. You can become what you want. And I know that might sound very, up in the sky and so on and so forth, but I was a guy that came from humble beginnings. I was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland. We immigrated to South Africa. We didn't have a lot of money. I'm one of four boys, so I would have passed down clothes until I was 13, 14. I did newspaper rounds when I was 10 to earn pocket money, and my money would go straight back into my sports. So when I was younger, 10, 11 years old, I wanted to be a professional tennis player. So my money, my parents said, "That's great, but you're going to have to support that." And I might not have known it then, but the lessons that gave me of suffering, even though I didn't suffer, so to say, because I had joy in what I was doing. And, my pocket money was probably, honestly, in today's currency, £1 a week, maybe, $2 a week from doing newspaper rounds twice a day. And that money would go back into buying my sports equipment and stringing rackets and so on, until it got to the stage when I was 14 and I'd reached a pretty good level in tennis. I was number 11 in the country in my age group. We just couldn't afford it anymore. Just could not afford strings, shoes.
It's expensive.
Exactly. Incredibly expensive. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have experienced this or are experiencing that. So I put away the racket and I took out some running shoes because I thought, well, this is not going to cost me much, a pair of running shoes, or as we used to do in South Africa. And this is what's amazing, by the way. This is an African, you're in partnership with an African sports group here. I mean, that's speaking to me right at home. So Sawubona, which is hello in South African. It's just amazing to be connected to this. So at the age of 14, 15, I got a pair of running shoes. Now, as you know, in Africa, we have the best runners in the world, hands down. And I just got absorbed in what was amazing, multicultural sports. So, I was educated in an apartheid South Africa, but I lived through the amazing journey of Nelson Mandela being released in 92, I think it was. I was there for his inauguration in 94. Just an incredible time. And again, sports brought me to that.
Look, I've just enjoyed that so much. I enjoy listening to you speak in general. And look, if you've got any questions, some are coming through. I'm already getting a bit of some responses already, which is awesome to see. So, look, I just want to follow up on something because, as we know, we're not on LinkedIn, which is more business related. And you've highlighted some very childhood sort of memories that have supported you now. So just for the audience listening, how can our memories, past memories, turn into future successes of those lessons out of interest?
Yeah, that's a great question. Everything is an experience. Even we're having an experience right now. So I would say my failures have taught me a lot more than my successes. I've really been in dark places. I lost everything a few years ago with the recession. I had $22 in the bank. I had to rebuild again. I think that's where it really, really struck me that the mindset and attitude you have is everything. The results that you get come down to your attitude and mindset. And that changed radically for me around about 2008, 2009, when I lost everything. Again, failures, successes, loss, that's not just in business, but that's in relationships. They all teach us something. They all give us something to work forward to. You know what I mean? If you're working on yourself, and I know every single person that's tuning into this right now want to be a better person. They want to be better. First of all, they want to be a better person before they're better in what they do in their career. You can't have healthy relationships if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself. And right here and now, I'm working on myself every single day. It's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing thing to keep working on yourself. And that's why at the end of each day, I self-reflect. I ask myself 3 questions. What did I do well today? What could I have done better today? And who did I make better today? I'll repeat those. What did I do well today? Who did I make better today? And
what have you helped others today?
Exactly.
Yeah.
One complete blank.
Mine bad.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Who else did I make better today? Sorry. But yes, every experience I've had, even though sometimes are incredibly tough, barely just making the dinner on the table for that day have taught me so much. They taught me grit. They taught me resilience. They taught me appreciation. They taught me gratitude. And that's something I do each day. Still to this day is I focus on what I'm grateful for. You can't be fulfilled. You can't be happy without gratitude. Success, well, how do you determine success? Is success the car you have in your driveway? Is success the watch you wear on your wrist? If that's success to do for you, that's completely fine. But for success to me, Ed, is fulfillment. Am I fulfilled in my life right now? That's the most important thing. And again, like I said, I'm a work in progress. Like anybody else, I have my low points. I have my weak points. I have so many sides I need to work on. One of the things that's improved for me over the year is more vulnerability. And vulnerability is not a weakness. And I talk about that in my new book, Developing a Winning Attitude and Mindset, especially for men. We've been taught when we were younger that, and I especially in school, that, crying is a weakness. Vulnerability is a weakness. Men don't do that. Well, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. That's ego. That's ego talking. When we become more vulnerable, when we become more in touch with ourselves, we can have more meaningful relationships with others.
Absolutely. And just with regards to your new book, I'm going to get straight to it because you nicely sent me a version of it digitally and I could just browse through some of the chapters. And there's one that hit me the most. And I think it goes down to the particular way we're living is choice. And there's one chapter which is finding joy is a choice. Could you just elaborate on that chapter? Because I know a lot of people interview you for the high performance side, but I think this is so important now. So I just love your sort of overview of this chapter. That's okay.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. Let me start with this. Happiness doesn't come to you. You go to it. So we're on this crusade. We're on this journey trying to find happiness. Where in fact, happiness is a choice. Happiness is something you choose. Now, it's very, very closely linked to how you define success. It's very, very closely linked to how you define your purpose. Now, if success is material things, well, that happiness is going to be very short-lived. The new car you got, the new pair of sneakers you got, for example, how long does that happiness last? Maybe a week, maybe 3-4 weeks, whatever it may be, and then it's gone again. And then we've got this dopamine shot of searching again for something else that's going to bring us happiness. The same in relationships as well. Nobody completes you. You complete yourself first. And again, getting back, you need to have a healthy relationship with yourself first before you can have a healthy relationship with others first. So, my message out there, and this is what I talk about in the book, is stop searching for happiness. Start looking for fulfillment. What fulfills you? Is it your family? Is it your spouse? Is it your career? Is it what you're passionate about? Find out what fulfills you, and that will bring you happiness. If you're attached to material things or social media, for example, Instagram and all these things, which are fantastic. However, they've become a highlight reel of people's lives. You go onto Instagram and all you just see is beautiful people and people having amazing vacations and people standing next to their beautiful
yachts.
cars, whatever. Exactly. And it's just their 5% highlight reel. And here's the secret. 99% of them don't own that and don't have that lifestyle. All right. They're just showing it to you. And we look at these things and we think, what's wrong with me? Why am I not achieving what they're achieving, for example? And it's a facade. It really is. I mean, of course, some people are successful in that sense, but finding joy is about finding fulfillment. Find out what fulfills you in life. What makes you happy? What makes you laugh? What gives you butterflies in your stomach? What makes you excited when you wake up in the morning? That is what's going to fulfill you. Find out what that is and do more of that.
So with regards to this winning attitude, because we're going really juicy now in this conversation, how would you define a winning attitude and mindset with regards to fulfillment?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's the choice of the thoughts you have in your head on a daily basis. It's the way you talk to yourself. It's the way you, we're in conversation with ourselves 24/7. Even in our sleep, we're thinking, we're dreaming, we're sorting out thoughts, for example. So a big thing in terms of how good your attitude and mindset is again, a choice. And it's the choice of words and thoughts, what you're saying to yourself. What you think in the mind really manifests in real life as well. So I talk about this in the book, is that the first thing you have to get control of is your thoughts. There's a chapter in the book called Take Control of Your Attitude, Please, I think it is, or Manage Your Attitude, Please. I should know. I wrote the book. So that's another thing. I forget about some of the things I write in my books where someone will say to me, that was a great thing you wrote. And I wrote that? And I have to sometimes go back to it. But I have what I call your attitude police. And it's almost like you have these police in your brain that are able to stop you from thinking negative thoughts. And, one thing I always say, Ed, is, the difference between positive and negative people? Positive people still get negative, but they're able to move on faster. They're able to let go of those negative thoughts. And you need to employ the attitude police for that, your own attitude police, to say, stop. Right? You know how the police at the stop you in your car or whatever, or they put that hand up. You need the same thing in your brain to say, stop. You're not going to say that negative thing. You're not going to think that negative thing. You're not going to say something that's not contributing positively. My father always said something very smart. He always said, Allistair, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. I'm still working on that. Okay. Again, I'm still a work in progress. But every time I go to, and social media, I know you're a big social media guy, Ed, and I've learned so much from you. Thank you. You see, we can learn from everybody, every generation, every age, every level. There's a thing, I put out a tweet there, Ed, and I said, I think it was on Sunday, where I said, ego says I know it all. Humility says I can learn from anybody, whatever age, sex, race, religion, level of education, I can learn from everybody. And that's something I try live my life by. Sorry, I completely went off the subject of what I was going to say.
I'm getting a few comments here. I'm just going to give you a little break because I know people are enjoying this
Thank
so much. This is just a few here that are coming through. This could be. We've got a great question here coming up now, just to break things up. So I'll let you just read this, but it's quite powerful.
Okay, can the viewers see this as well?
Yeah, they can see this question live now. So,
okay. I work with 150 vulnerable children in Korogocho slum in Nairobi. Sometimes I care so much about the happiness of these children instead of mine. Okay, that's a real leader right there. That's a coach. Is somebody that serves others. How can I increase my commitment to help the children as well as work on how to fulfill my career? Thank you, Mohammed. That's an amazing question. First of all, from what I can read between the lines are that you're someone that really cares. You haven't mentioned anything about wanting something or achieving something or trying to climb the ladder. You're really absorbed in what you're doing right there from what I can see. So, our best example in leadership is example. Especially working with children, they will remember. They remember and see a lot of things. If you're saying one thing and doing another, you're not being the example. So I think what Mohammed is saying there is that how can he do more for them? I think what he's doing already is amazing by the sounds of it. He's putting himself out there. He's serving others. I think what the most important, what the 4 most important words a kid needs to hear?
What are they?
And this is anybody, is I believe in you. Every child needs to hear those 4 words, I believe in you, just like every human being does. When a kid can hear those, there are the 4 most powerful words a child can hear. They will remember those 4 words for the rest of their lives. When somebody says to them, I believe in you. As teachers, as coaches, as people who work with children, we don't know the chaos and the destruction and the possibly violence that goes on when they're at home. And then they come to school, they come to sports practice. It's almost like a relief for them to get out of there, right? And we don't know the power. We don't really understand the power we have as educators, as coaches, as these type of people working with kids. In a way, we can actually sometimes only be their only lifeline. Now, that is a massive thing when you think about that, and especially Mohammed there. You could be those kids' only lifeline. And you know what? You might only hear of these things much later on in life. One of the biggest things that fulfill me now, okay, are getting an email or getting a letter or getting a text from somebody that I coached or worked with 20 years ago when they were 13, or now they're 33, 6, whatever. They're married now, for example, and they said, thank you. I always remember those training sessions that we had, or always remember that time you took the group down to the forest and we did sprints, and how you pushed me and how you believed in me. If I can give any advice to Mohammed, keep being that inspiration, keep being that person for those kids. Believe in them. Tell them you believe in them.
What a response. I hope, Mohammed, that has answered your question. And just to follow up, as you know, we're all at home, parents. There was one guy called Matt Rogan, who's a CEO of a company. He's the PE teacher, the science teacher, the English teacher, the maths teacher, 2 kids, plus he's got a large business in the sports industry. And he's, like you said, he's managed to pivot due to his experience in business and managed to cope with his environment at home. What advice would you give to parents with regards to, because this book, your new book, is not just sport related, it's winning attitude and mindset. Yes, there's sport as examples, but my goodness, this conversation already has not been really sport related. So would you mind just providing some words of wisdom where your book can provide guidance to parents who are getting used to this change in a very short period of time?
Are you referring to Champion Minded or the new one, Ed?
I think the new one, personally. I've looked at some of the chapters. I think it's more, I would say is more, if I'm being honest, I have had a glance of your new book last night, but this is very sport related, where you go through like your examples, but your new one, there is sport examples, but the chapters are so relevant to, I think, a more global audience. So I just thought now we talked about coaches, I just think parents at home who are watching this could benefit from what you've just wrote. Well,
here's the thing. Who are the most important people in a kid's life? It's parents. So who are the greatest example? Parents. So the better chance you have of having a happy, fulfilled, successful child who turns into a happy, successful adult is the example that you lead by. So a book like this, for example, or other books, I mean, there's thousands of books on the market with regards to attitude and mindset. I get that. But the more we can become, and I'm not a parent, but the more we can become a better example to others, and it's through these things, it's through reading, it's through what we take in every day, the social media we follow, the people we follow on Twitter, on Instagram, all these. What are we feeding ourselves? Because that is eventually what we become, right? So for parents, you are your greatest example to your kids. You are their heroes, for example. So the things you say, the way you react, the way you control your emotions, all these things rub off on those child, for example. So, you know, it's one of the toughest jobs, and I'm not a parent, has to be a parent. It has to be a parent. You know, right now we're in the coronavirus pandemic, and there's a lot of homeschooling going on, and now we realize what teachers really do and how tough a job it is. But, you know, even during this time, and I encourage you out there, parents, I know it's difficult in what you're doing right now, but I encourage you to stay positive. Another thing is have standards, have rules to how you're going to structure your day, especially with homeschooling. If I can suggest this, and I know I'm going off the subject a little bit here, is have a start time to your classes, have a break time, stick to the times and the goals that you're setting for, as if the child was in school, for example. If they're just getting up and it's starting at 7 o'clock one morning and 10 the next, and then they sleep in, and so it's all over the place. The best thing you can do for a child, and my book explains that as well, is have a game plan to your day, have structure to your day. The most successful people I've worked with, and I've worked with Fortune 500 CEOs, I've worked with some of the best athletes and people in the entertainment industry, is the first thing I give them is, or I help them with, is build a structure. Have a wake up time, have a sleep, have a go to bed time. And in between that, structure your day, right? The most successful people live strategically. The most successful people live with purpose. And as a parent, which I believe is the hardest leadership role of all, is that there needs to be these things in place.
And just to follow up on this, how important is that self-discipline as well? Because not because of you writing your books, which is a bit ironic. At the beginning of the conversation, you said the English teacher kicked you out, and now you're writing more books and probably playing sport. But just to follow up with structure, could you just explain how important has self-discipline been for you during this period, but also during your career in the work you do in high-performance sport?
You know, I had a headmaster back in school, and he said something in, do you call it assembly?
Yeah, assembly.
In the UK.
Yeah.
So, you know, all the kids go in there on a, whatever day it was, Wednesday morning, and you listen to the headmaster. And then I was the captain of one of my sports teams. You have to go up and read the results, and you're shaking like a leaf. But wow, now I get to speak to thousands later on, and now I realize how important was getting up on stage in front of 1,000 fellow pupils and reading out the sports results. But he said, what he said was, I'm going blank again here. Give me 1 second here. I apologize.
Take your time.
He said this: either you discipline yourself, or somebody else will discipline you. And that's not just in parenting, but that's in life as well, right? So if you don't discipline yourself, somebody else will have to discipline you, be that a teacher, be that an employer, for example, or God forbid, getting in trouble with the law. They'll have to discipline you, for example. So the more you discipline, you know, Jocko Willink, the fantastic book, Extreme Ownership, I think it was, he says, you know, that discipline is freedom. And I buy into that 100%, is that the more discipline I've had in life, the more freedom it's given me to do what I want to do. And, you know, in fact, it's a huge part of my purpose. And I've got it right here, and I'm going to just read it to you word for word, because I believe it's very important. And I encourage you guys out there who are listening is to find your purpose if you don't have your purpose, is to find what your vision if you don't have a vision. Define success is for you, what success is for you. Those three things: define success, define purpose, define your vision. But my purpose is this. It's very simple. 3 lines: to live each day intentionally, to serve, impact, and help others find their greater purpose in life, to empower others to live a life of fulfillment and meaning. And I'm sure just by this conversation, you've already heard the key words jump out there. You know, if I was to maybe make it in bold, the words, it would be serve, impact, purpose, fulfillment are huge things for me. And that is what I try live by every single day. But yes, discipline yourself. The more discipline you give yourself, and it's hard, absolutely, but the more discipline you give yourself, the more freedom you're allowed later. Now, I believe the discipline of all those years growing up, of all the younger years and into my sports career, which I'm so thankful for, gave me the freedom I have today. The years of discipline I would be, the past years, for example, while others were watching Netflix or going out to parties, I was training when I was an athlete. I was getting the right amount of sleep in. I worked 3 jobs to keep my sports career going because we didn't have any financial support back then. So the passion, the purpose was very, very high. You know, purpose is linked to discipline as well. The more purpose you have, the more discipline you have as well towards doing that. Later on in life with writing books, I mean, I'm traveling 90, 100 flights a year and being in, I don't know how many, 40 to 60 different hotels every year. And after a long day of, say, 10, 11 hours of being with clients, getting back to the hotel room, and instead of lying on the bed and watching TV or scrolling aimlessly through social media, I'm writing books. I'm sitting at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the midnight writing pages. Some of them that won't get published because, when you read it in the morning, you go, I must have been tired because that's a terrible page.
Out of interest, just taking a step, but I've read this book and it's changed my way of my life. What have you learned the most being an author, out of interest?
That I had to learn how to write. It's easier said than done, but sometimes you don't have the inspiration to write. You're not in the mood to write, but that's where discipline comes in, is that I said I was going to do a page every day, and I'm going to do a page every day, because I'll say to myself, Allistair, if you have 10 minutes to look through Facebook and social media, you have 10 minutes to write a page. It's all about choice. It's the discipline you have. It's the purpose you have. But what has writing the books taught me? It's taken me back on a lot of years of the experience I've had and things I've maybe forgotten about. And I'd like, I forgot I actually did that, or I forgot I had that conversation with that purpose. So in a way, it's like almost me brain dumping things I've learned in my life onto paper and then sharing it. Now, especially with my new book, Developing a Winning Attitude and Mindset, I've developed as a person because I'm a lifelong learner. Every day I get up and I want to learn something more. And at the end of the day, I self-reflect, as I mentioned. So that's enabled me to be more vulnerable, to share more things that I maybe wouldn't have shared 5 years ago, for example, on being vulnerable, on the self-image issues I had, on the lack of confidence I had. Everyone I think, you're so positive, you're so confident. And this is something I was listening to you and Amy chatting a little bit earlier this morning, and Amy saying that she felt nervous, going up to speak and so on. Listen, if you don't feel nervous, it doesn't mean enough to you. You want to know something? I still get nervous speaking, and I can't tell you how many keynote speeches I've given. I still have butterflies in my stomach before I come in. I even get online and do something like this. And you know what? I'm happy I have them because it means something to me. If I'm coming on to something like this and I just don't feel anything, then
what's the point?
You're not going to feel my passion. You're not going to feel that I'm excited to be here. People will see through that. They will read through your authenticity about if you're really here for the right reasons, and getting back to Muhammad, if you're here for the right reasons or you're not there for the right reasons. But I have been in the locker room with athletes like Roger Federer, Nadal, and even after so many Grand Slam championships that these guys have won, Andy Murray, because you're there in the UK, for example, Kevin Anderson, the South African player I worked with for 4 years, who reached number 5 in the world. They get incredibly nervous before every single match. You see Nadal, you see Federer. I see them in the locker room. I see them in the gym before going out to compete in Grand Slams like Wimbledon and US Open, and they're nervous. You can see it. They're pacing up and down. There's a little bit of sweat on the brow, and you think to yourself, My goodness, these are guys that have like been doing this for 20 years.
Yes.
They have played over 1,000 matches live on television, and they're still nervous. Why? Because they're human. And the biggest thing of all, because it means something to them. So Amy, keep getting nervous, please. I always knew, here's a little story. I always knew that when my athletic career would finish, and I was blessed to compete in 5 world championships in the sport of duathlon, running and biking. I always knew that when my day would be up, when I would step up to a world championship line and I wouldn't feel anything, I wouldn't be nervous. And it happened. It happened in Atlanta, 2002. I'm standing up for probably one of the biggest moments of my life. It was my 5th world championship. And I didn't feel nerves. I didn't feel butterfly. I thought to myself, this is weird. That something's not right here. And I actually had a good race. I mean, I came second in my age group in the world in that race. I just missed out on being world champion in my age group in that race by 1 minute and 15 seconds, I think it was, over a span of a 2-hour race. But that's when I knew my career was finished. And I had a great career. It wasn't a sad moment. It was actually in a way of like, okay, this has been a great ride. And getting back to my career as well, I'm sorry if I'm going on here.
No, I hope the audience are enjoying it as much as I am. That's all I'm going to say. Carry on.
So, guys. Hopefully I don't waffle on too much. If you're in a career right now, or you're somewhere in your life where you're not happy, you're not a tree. You can move. Okay, you can change. So 6 or 7 years ago, like I said, I was more in the sports performance industry, and I would work one-on-one with athletes, and I'd work one-on-one with coaches, etc. And I had that feeling again eventually where I was no longer waking up inspired. I was no longer waking up passionate to do what I did. It became work for me. And it never was work for me. It was like, I can't wait to get out today. I can't wait to go see this person. I can't wait to go work with this athlete. What a privilege that is. I can't believe I'm actually doing this. I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. And I no longer had the butterflies in my stomach. I no longer had that passion. I said, okay, something has to change. And there was a little bit of doubt and negativity that crept into my mind of like, well, what else do you know? What else do you know, Allistair? This is all you've done. And, maybe I didn't know it then, but my attitude police were already there long before I knew that the attitude police existed. And they said, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself beating yourself up right now. Listen to the doubt and things that you're putting into your head. You were made for greatness. So change your attitude, change the way you're thinking about yourself. What else are you good at? So I took a pen and paper and I wrote down what I love to do. What am I good at? And I was able to map out that I love leading people. I love working with working with people who lead others. Teachers, coaches, CEOs, managers, restaurant managers. It doesn't matter what it is. And I found that was my passion, and that reignited my passion. So I left everything I knew, even though there were some things that would take me, anything you've done will help you further in your career. It doesn't matter what it is. But I changed. And I knew at first it wouldn't all happen. I wouldn't have clients, and I wouldn't be like all of a sudden busy. Overnight success is 10 plus years. My overnight success has been 27 years in the making. So, when people look and go, oh, he's lucky. Oh, look what he's got. No, I didn't have a college degree. I barely had high school. I had to make things happen. And I know please don't get me wrong, I know there's millions out there that have had it worse than me. I get that. But I did have to work 3 jobs a day. I had to flip burgers. I had to deliver newspapers. Some of my jobs included being a mascot for a soft drinks company. It included waitering in a restaurant, which, by the way, was the best thing that ever happened, even though I didn't necessarily enjoy it. But if you want to work on the service industry, go be a waiter or waitress. It was the best lesson in my life of how your attitude determines what your tips are going to be. Okay?
Look, that is awesome. I just got to share some feedback before we wrap up. But honestly, I've just got a big smile. Like, honestly, really quick.
You're always smiling.
I always do. But honestly, just to see, I've got to share these with you. So this is Mohammed just now. I'm just gonna share this later as well. So this is what this event's all about, everybody. Seriously, Amy and I were so pleased when we got Allistair on board, and we talked about fulfillment. All those hours of getting this, making it happen, to see this, it's made my day. It really has. To see a question get answered, and then to see this reply is made my day. Here's another one from Earl about the power of self-discipline.
Thanks, Earl.
I've got Tijana, like we've done a podcast. I've given people a bit of a hint, but when we had a chat, she's connected to the conversation. Then we've got Sports Legal as well. Like, this is what this day is all about. Don't get me wrong, I would love to do 20 a day, but it makes this event even special. So, Allistair, like,
if I can come in there and answer that, or just share something there.
Absolutely.
Public speaking is nothing more than sharing. So it changed for me when I stopped presenting. I stopped speaking, and I started sharing. Because when you share your experiences, and here's the thing, is people are going to be more inspired by your imperfections than your perfections. So getting up there and saying how amazing your life is and the journey to success and so on, people are like, okay, that's nice, but that's not me. That's not been my journey. So I encourage you to share what you know. Don't get up there and think, I have to remember this, I have to remember that. I always say that, and still after this day, and I've probably given over 1,000 keynote speeches and so on, is that I know every single talk is not going to go the way I planned it. It's not going to go the way I planned it. So the more I plan it, the more it's going to make me forget things, and oh my goodness, I forgot to say this, and so no. Have a few key points. For example, have a card if that helps you. Keep it simple. Share. People love stories. People want to hear about your story. Okay? They don't want you to go up there and just point on a PowerPoint and go, here's 10 points on this and here's 8 points on that. I use PowerPoint, that's fine, but share. Share your experiences. Share your imperfections. When I changed from speaking, presenting, and I changed, like, just share your story, Allistair. And that links closely, Ed. Do you remember when at the beginning of this conversation you spoke about experiences?
Yep.
Share your experiences.
Exactly. And that was starting. What I love about this conversation, it was just as magical as our podcast on a different topic. We've gone full circle. We've talked about an experience at school where you were more involved or more interested of the sports field than the English teacher. And now you're launching a book this week. Can you just, and also talking about fulfillment. Look, I've just got a few more comments back. I've just got one. If you wouldn't mind repeating, I think
I've got time, so no problem at all.
No worry. We've got here. Please, could you repeat the 3 things you ask yourself every day before you go to bed? If you can remember those 3 things.
Okay. Absolutely. You know what? I'm going to go one step further there. I live each day, and I write about this in my book, with living with gas. All right. The G stands for gratitude. So each morning I wake up, I think of 2 things I'm grateful for, and usually it ends up more. So start your day with gratitude. The A stands for live your day with appreciation. Another word for that is gratitude. So even just, throughout the day thinking, wow, this cup of coffee is really good. I'm so grateful that I have this laptop that I can speak to you. I'm being mindful of all these things around me that are here. I mean, so live each day in appreciation. Leave it, I went to the store yesterday to get some supplies, and those workers in the stores right now, the grocery stores, God bless them, man. I mean, they're out there in the public. They're like the nurses and the doctors and these are heroes right now. Okay, not the people in Hollywood and sports stars and so forth. I hope next year that they have an awards for every single nurse and person in the service industry. But the mindfulness and appreciation of someone that's wiping down the handle of my cart, you call it trolley, I think.
Trolley, yeah.
Wiping down to give that to me. The people and the cashiers with that are standing there during this pandemic right now. I thank them. I thank I have one in a chapter in the book called Jose the Bagpacker. Someone that he's at this store as well. He's 80 something, but he brings joy to me every time I go in there. We laugh and so on. But I'm mindful, appreciation. And then answering Margaret's question, the 3 things I ask myself at the end of each day in self-reflection are, what did I do well today? Which helps my confidence, which helps my self-image, because we're easy to beat ourselves up in. So what did I do well today? What could I have done better today? Helps me think, you know what? I probably could have spoken to Ed a little bit better than I did. I was a little bit abrupt with him today. Okay, good. I'm mindful of that. Maybe I'll send him an email in the morning and say, listen, Ed, sorry I was a little bit abrupt last evening. And then the third one is, who did I make better today? Who did I make better around me today? When we live with these 3 questions and we self-reflect on these 3 questions, not only do you make yourself a better person, but you make everybody else around you a better person.
There's just the reply from Margaret just now.
Thank you.
And here's just another one. This is again made my day. This is why we've set up the summit. Like we've only got 5 more interviews left, but we wish we could have another 20 and do an
Thanks,
ultra
Demetrio.
marathon.
That's a cool name, by the way. I like that name, Demetrio.
But look, Allistair, really quickly, and there will be a link in the comment. How can people engage with your latest book out of interest?
Sure. Thanks for asking. It's on Amazon worldwide. Now, let me just put this in here. With this week that we've just had and everything going on, there has been a little bit of teething problems with Amazon. So you might not find the book come up on the menu. You actually have to go into books on Amazon and then put in developing a winning attitude and mindset. So I don't know. We're busy working with Amazon right now, but I know in the United States it's clear. But you actually have to go looking for the book. Now, on my Facebook page, Allistair McCaw page, I did put the links to countries like Australia, Japan, Germany, France, UK, etc. So that might help. Also on Twitter, at Allistair McCaw. And as you know, Ed, I love my Twitter. And Instagram, Be Champion Minded.
Amazing. Look, before Allistair has to shoot off, I would love you to share your biggest takeaway. And if you haven't got one, you ain't been listening. Sorry, I'm going to shout all these audiences out because you have not been listening. I've learned so much. I wish I had a pen and paper while taking notes, while sitting here very quiet and just embracing your knowledge and your expertise, Allistair. Please share your biggest learning lesson. And the one thing I want to say as well with regards to the nurses and that, Allistair, we didn't have time to mention it to you and the other speakers, but today we have a impact partner, a social impact partner, Common Goal. So down below, we've got a link where people can actually donate directly to the COVID-19 fund. So look, I would appreciate if you could add value there. Allistair, what he was saying about the nurses, the doctors, the sort of unsung heroes, but really should be acknowledged more than in this period of time, athletes. So Allistair, it's been such a pleasure. I can't put into words when I sent you that message a couple of weeks ago going, would you be interested? And now we're doing it. I am super grateful and thank you very much.
Well, again, as I started this conversation, a massive thanks to you and Amy for this. I mean, what you've put on is just incredible. Like I said, I wouldn't even attempt that, to be honest. And just helping us get better as well. I mean, that's just incredible. So thank you again. Thanks for having me on. Thank you to everybody who tuned in here, taking time away from your day. And stay safe, stay positive.
Take care, Allistair, and you take care as well and be safe.
Thank you.